basically the goal after this is to get you knowing how to connect to data in Tableau, how to throw some visualizations together, and then ultimately how to save it and push it to the web so that you could embed it in a blog post or an article or email it out to people. But first, we'll just start with a little video.
Tableau was born out of a need to ask and answer questions of data in real time. Tableau Public allows you to take your data and bring it to life. It allows you to visualize it and share it with others in a way that they can actually understand it. It allows you to easily embed it on your web page so that others can see it. It starts by immediately connecting you to the data. And Tableau does a lot of the work for you to figure out what the data type is. It's not just about turning a boring table into some eye candy. The data visualizations are live. So what you can do is drag and drop the data right onto the canvas and immediately start to see some results. Immediately start to answer some of your questions. You can interact with one chart in such a way that the other ones change as well. So it allows you to have this really deep experience where you can continue to navigate through a million different questions. You can quickly look at things in a whole new way. The dashboard is actually a fully functional application that you can embed right into your website. All this without writing any code. When you visualize data, it lets you create an exploratory environment where other people can discover other insights based on the questions that they have. This is why Tableau Public was created. It's a free tool. It's for anyone to use. It allows this dialogue to take place. You don't need to understand code and know how to program. You don't have to develop software. You don't have to be some design expert. All you need to be is an explorer.
All right, yeah, so that's basically top level overview of what Tableau is. It's a free tool. Tableau Public is so about the whole company. It makes its money by licensing the software to businesses, business intelligence software. But the founders basically made a decision, 5, 6, 7 years ago. They're like, we don't want Tableau to be like an SAP or an IBM. Everyone knows these companies, but no one really knows what they do or what their products are or whatnot. So they decided to launch a slightly different product, Tableau Public, which is basically the exact same tool as the paid one, but you can't save anything locally on your computer, so nothing exists behind a firewall. It's all pushed to the web, to the Tableau Public server. So it's designed for data in the public eye. So that's why a lot of the work we do is with journalists and bloggers and sports writers and stuff, people who are dealing with data that is not private. And so it's a pretty cool product, and the best part is it's completely free, so it makes my job kind of a lot easier, not asking for anything from you guys, just your undivided attention. All right, so with that, I think we can start taking a look at our data set. So hopefully you guys all have this locally on your computer. And this is always step one in any Tableau visualization. You need to get the data. And that can often be hard, that can often be easy. And the format that Tableau Public likes data in is Excel, or a text file, a CSV, something like that. And normally, just kind of rule of thumb, it likes everything to be consistent. Just rows and columns, no, messy headers or just blank cells randomly. So this data set is pre-formatted nicely for Tableau. And a little bit about this data set. It was part of a World Bank kind of pilot study they did in 2010, where they went into 8 different countries and tried to crowdsource prices for different foodstuffs. So it's crowdsourced grocery prices. So we have, in our columns, we got product names, rice, cornflakes, bread, about 30 different things. Some quantity, we have some price information, and then we have a location information. So once we start ultimately building out a visualization, it's important to think of what you want to do. So my first reaction when looking at this data set would be, okay, there's this piece of location information. Let's try to maybe map the data then. And so Tableau ultimately is just a way for you, the creator, to create an environment where your end user, be that just yourself in 2 weeks, be that a reader of an article, be that your boss, has a way to interact with data. So that's kind of the whole idea behind the company. So it's hard to interact with this data in a spreadsheet, right? You can scroll down, you're not going to get much value out of this. So our task today is to create a better way to interact with this data set. That's really as simple as it is. And we'll learn how to use the tool along the way. Okay, so we have our data set, looks pretty standard. So now let's open Tableau Public. Oh, and throughout this whole thing, if little things are looking wonky on your computer or whatever, just call me and I'll come over. I want to make this kind of as hands-on and interactive as possible. And we'll go slowly, but if anything comes up, just let me know. So let me go back to that. So we're going to connect to our data. So these are your different file types you can connect to. In this case, it's an Excel file. So just hit Excel, and then you just got to go find where the file is on your computer. For me, it's in my desktop. So just going to go click on the Excel file, hit Open. So yeah, we're basically just connecting to our data set right here, and this is Tableau just reading in your Excel file. All right, but so hopefully you guys see this. This is just a little data preview window. And what this is telling us is with these little icons underneath the column headings. So if we compare back to Excel, this is just the exact same information, just ported over. But what Tableau is doing, and this is kind of the first little preview of the user interface, so if you can see these little icons, it's reading in these different columns as different pieces of information. So here under observation date, you can see that it's already kind of reading it in as a date. So you just want to kind of go in and make sure that the software is correctly interpreting these pieces of information. So price we see as a number, that's good. Location here, however, if we're going to want to map it, we will not want it to be read in as a string. So these are our different types of data formats. So what we're going to want to do here...
What's a Boolean?
Boolean, that's just a type of string. We basically need to tell the software that this city, comma, country piece of information is a geographic piece of information. So we're going to have to do 2 steps here. So first we're just going to have to split the data, because now it's all in one Excel format. So in Excel it says city, comma, country. Tableau, we're going to want to look at those separately, so that we'll be able to look at cities individually from countries.
So, like, that's helpful to know to do that. You can do it in Tableau, because I would have been like, oh, I need to put the data
in Excel. Yeah, you can do most data wrangling directly here in this little data preview pane. And so the user interface, often there are going to be these little down carrots on a lot of things we'll see throughout this presentation. So that's like kind of an option menu. So if you always just click on that, you'll see different things you can do. So in this case, we'll want to split this field. So after we split it, we still got to tell it that it's a geographic role. So if we just hit that ABC, and then we just tell that this is a city, and then that this one over here is a country. Yeah, and be careful to not hit county. I know it looks a lot like country.
I might have done it.
Yeah.
It's like one of those common mistakes in my stories.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And then if we want to get fancy, we can just rename this as city, rename this as country. Just
how did you rename?
That same drop-down caret, just to the right there, and hit rename. Cool. And now I'm happy with how the data looks.
But we're going to leave the original
location,
city, country row.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Tableau can handle, millions of rows of data, so there's never a problem of having too many things. And then we're just going to hit sheet 1. So this is kind of like our data preview pane, and then our sheets are where we're actually going to build out the visualization. So this is kind of like the spot. This is where all the action happens. So over here, this is basically our canvas, which is where we'll build stuff. So just, a quick example, you can just drop something out, and then it'll just pull the information for you. And that's how this whole thing works. It's just drag and drop. So instead of having to code something or figure out what you want to do, what's cool about Tableau is it's instant feedback. So you can just drag your pieces of information from our data window over here directly out onto the canvas over here. And that's essentially how the entire software works. And so there are little things like this Show Me tab. So if you want to build a stacked bar chart, it'll tell you that you need one of the blue dimensions on the top, one of the green measures on the bottom. And so the difference between these dimensions and measures, again, this is an automatic data reading capacity of the software, but it's pretty simple to think about. So dimensions are categories, they're buckets. So product name, it's going to be shrimp or cornflakes or Coca-Cola or coffee. That's like a bucket, a grouping mechanism, a category. Whereas our measures are going to be numbers, price, the latitude of the city. So specific numbers that you can essentially do math on. So that's how the software is separating the dimensions from the measures. And then as we'll see, if we try to, when we visualize stuff, dimensions and measures behave differently. Okay, so now I think we can start finally. I know I'm going fast here, but Tableau is like learn as you go. So the best thing is have you guys just like messing around. So let's try to build out that map we were talking about earlier. So let's just take country, which we've told is now a piece of geographic information, and just drop it right there onto the canvas. So I can go back. Again, this is a very good tip. You can go back to the beginning of time with this just go back thing. So you'll never like make a big error and totally mess up. You can always just go back. So again, all I'm doing is dropping country, dragging it out of my dimensions, data pane, right into this big drop field here.
How did you know which one of those 3 boxes to drop it into?
So that's basically saying, like if we do it here, it's going to give a list of the countries. If we do it here, it's going to do a column list of the countries. This is just going to build out a map. I just know that, but you could also do map up here. There are just different ways of doing it. Now that we have this map built out, your analysis and what you're going to try to build is going to come from what you're trying to say or tell. So the workflow in Tableau, what's cool because it's instant feedback and you're not committing to writing 20 lines of code to turn a graphic that might just not be at all what you're interested in. It's great for just trial and error and messing around. So that's what we'll do here. We'll just play with the data set. This is often how you get into the data and figure out what story you're trying to tell. So let's just take price and drop it out onto color. Again, just price and down in the measures and drop it onto color. So this little area here is for more specific actions. So now we're saying we're coloring our 8 countries based on the gradient, this green gradient of price. So the darker the green, the higher the sum of the prices. And if we wanted to instead try that on size, if we don't like that, just drag it right here from color onto size. And now we'll see that instead of it being on the gradient of color, it's on the gradient of size. So I actually liked color more, so let's put that back onto color. Easier to tell on the greens. Then if you want to get fancy, you can just edit the colors right here, and there are all sorts of different color options you can do. All sorts of customizing things. Again, that was just the drop-down caret, edit color. However, currently there's something wrong with this map. And I wonder if anyone can spot it just right off the bat. Tough question.
India?
It's going to be...
The price is in an odd... No, go ahead.
It's going to be based on the aggregation method here on price. So currently it's set to sum. So this data set, who knows, it could have just 20 items in Brazil, whereas 500 in Nigeria. So the sum measure is messing up here, because there might be an imbalance in the number of records or number of observations in each country. So in order to fix that, let's just change this from sum. Again, hit that drop-down caret. And Tableau will always default to sum when you drag out a number, which is good to know. But you can always change it. So instead of sum, let's just change that to average. So now this is showing a better view of where food items are more expensive based on the average price in that country. So if we hover over these, we'll see that it'll give us the actual information. So Nigeria, the average price is $3, whereas Brazil, it's just over $2. And then India, where it's more red, is going to be even less.
But that's for like every food item ever?
Every food item in the data set, correct. So
and we don't know if there are exactly the same food items in each country.
Yeah, they're the same food items in each country, but there might be different observation numbers for each country. But so again, that's a very good question. This is just a very top-down view. So ultimately what we're going to be trying to build here is a little bit of a story. So we're going to take our end user through 3 or 4 different visualizations, this might be one of them, that'll help them explore the data set. So just a little strategy here, we're going to go from the top-down view. So this is basically our most zoomed out view, and then as we go along, we're gonna zoom in. So, okay, this is an interesting map, but for the purposes of this story we're gonna just do a very slightly different one. So let's actually just clear this sheet. So this button up here, totally wipe it, and then let's just quickly build a very similar map. That's going to be a little bit different. So let's go country again. You can either drop it out here, or you can also just double click it and it'll build the map for you. And then let's drag another copy of country out onto color. And so that's also a little tip of how the behavior is different from when we drop a measure, a number like price, onto color. You know, it builds this gradient for us, but then if you drop a dimension, a category, onto color, it's just going to give us a discrete coloring of each country. So this is basically just going to be our where is the data coming from, which countries. So let's change this to a filled map, just so we have a nice kind of colorful picture.
How'd you do that?
So I just went from, it was automatic before. This is specifying exactly which format you want the map to show in, and go to filled map. And then here's our map. So that looks good. I'm gonna just name this tab down below map. That's just for bookkeeping. So now this will answer the question of where is the data coming from. Super introductory. Okay, here's my story about crowdsourced grocery prices. Question 1, where is the data coming from? Which countries have participated? So now let's build another sheet, and this will look a little more closely at the different types of food items and how they vary between countries. So let's take product name, drop it out onto rows. So there we'll see our 25 different products. Now let's take price and put it onto columns. And again, we have this, it's, as you see, defaulting to sum, so as it will always do. Let's change that again to average.
Oh, we created a new one.
Yeah, create a new worksheet. So now we see we have all our different things. It'll be easier to sort this so we can see what's most expensive. So this is our little sort icon up here on the top.
Shrimp.
So we can just sort that. And we see that shrimp, beef, coffee, and cornflakes for some reason are very expensive around the world.
sorry, dash where? Which drop down had the average?
So that's if you just click on any piece of information on your canvas. So you just click on that and you can change it. If we want to do sum, we can just go back to sum, average, median.
Is it a right click?
Under measure.
No.
Yeah.
Measure.
Okay.
Yeah, got that?
Do we know how they chose these items in particular?
That was just the World Bank study. I don't know. I wasn't part of that process. Sorry. So here we have a look at not the countries, but just the products. So around the world, shrimp is the most expensive, followed by beef. But what if we want to drill down a little bit more and look at this on a country level? So again, this is part of that whole aggregation thing. Now we're looking worldwide. Let's focus a little bit and look at countries. So let's drag country right here onto columns next to price and just drop that on there. So now the software is going to break down this information for each country. So it's the exact same chart with the exact same data, but now we can look at it on a more granular country by country level. Then if we just want to be consistent with our other chart, let's get country onto color again, just so it's the same. So you know that pink is Pakistan, red is Indonesia.
How do you get the different products in a specific order?
So I sorted it up here, so you can go kind of least to most like that, or highest to lowest like that. Hopefully some of you guys are still with me. All right, so this is already actually a pretty powerful view. So we can see that in certain countries, certain food items are more expensive than others. So now maybe if we're a journalist, we're thinking, okay, seeing more data here, stories are starting to develop. However, with Tableau, we can help ourselves out even more by doing some actual analytics on this view. So if you see up here next to the data window, there's a whole analytics pane, and this will give us a few cool analytics options that I'll briefly touch on. So if we just click on that, a slightly different window opens. So instead of seeing our different columns and headers and all that, we see analytics items like constant line, average line. So it might be interesting to see what the average price is in these different countries right here on this view. So if we take average line and just drag it out and drop it here onto pane, it'll look at each country individually and give me the different average.
That's so.
Where's pane?
It appears.
So if you just drag out average line, you'll see different options to drop it on. So just try dropping it onto pane.
Yes.
And then if we actually click on one of the lines and hit edit, we'll be able to just mess around with it a little bit. So if you see here on the bottom, it just says average. I want it to actually say what number that average is. So we'll be able to manipulate that here in edit. So if you see edit, it's currently being labeled with the computation. So that's why it says average. It's what this line is. But if we just switch that to value, then it'll actually say what the value is for each country. Ooh. Mine's just looking weird because I just have two lines on there. But yeah, just edit, value, and then we'll see that for each country, it'll display the average value there on the bottom.
It doesn't feel like it changed anything.
It doesn't change it, it just displays the value of that average on the bottom. You seen that?
Yeah.
So 1.758 for Bangladesh, 2.2 for Kenya. So again, we're starting to drill down. This is great. We're starting to actually get some data to back up our story. But what if we wanted to just look at outliers in certain countries? So I see in Kenya, instant coffee is really expensive, whereas in Bangladesh, rice is really cheap. So what would happen if we click on just outliers and see how this average changes. So on my Mac, I'm going to hit my Command button. I'm just going to highlight some certain things. If you're on a PC, it's Control. So I'm just going to highlight some outliers here. So in Brazil, what's way ahead of the average? Just a couple things there. And then we'll see that our average line is actually changing to dynamically reflect these outliers. So I'm just, starting to dig a little bit more. Maybe I want to talk about Kenya and why coffee is so expensive. So if we look at that, we can just clearly highlight outliers. And remember as well, throughout this whole process, you have to be thinking twofold. You got to put yourself in your shoes as the journalist or researcher who's getting stories out of this data set for yourself, but then more importantly, you got to put yourself in the shoes of your end user, whoever that might be. So the power of Tableau is that since it's an interactive piece of software, it really puts the power in the hands of the end user, because ultimately they're going to be the ones who will be able to manipulate the visualizations you create, because these are not going to be static images. They're going to be interactive applications with filters and highlightable things like this. So you just got to remember that throughout this whole process. You got to think, what is the experience going to be like for my reader? So with this option, we're allowing the reader to select outliers for themselves.
Question.
Yep.
So what if you had another set of information? So you have the items, you have the countries, and then say you have month to month. Is there a way you can add another
yes.
dynamic to it? I don't know.
Definitely. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. We started with this map. Now we're building another piece of information with this price by different quantities, by different products, excuse me. That's a good segue. So now we'll start actually working on our presentation. So like I said, it's going to be a story. So if you see on the bottom here, instead of just a new worksheet, which is this 1/3 from the left, it's also an option for a dashboard. Let's hit this new story. That's the icon farthest on the right with the little book. We'll just make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. And this is where we're going to start presenting our exploratory environment for the user. Yes?
Sorry, could you step back just one step?
Yes, so all I did was just hit this little icon, new story. That's it. So now with the same drag and drop mechanism, we're just going to start really zoomed out with our map. Just drag it on here. And let's add a little description. So we'll say, or let me hit this title here, say data was collected from 8 countries around the world. And then maybe add a little description for our reader. So the World Bank, a pilot study on crowd-sourced grocery prices. Sure. So imagine this is going to live in an article on the web. So you want it to be almost a standalone little data exploratory story.
Where did the edit description?
So this is...
Wait, can you go back to where edit description
Yeah,
is?
so all I did was just take this description
Okay.
and just dragged it out, and then a little text box is going to come up. And again, you can, format it, font, whatever, match the look and feel of your publication or your blog or whatever. So our strategy, remember, is to go from the top and drill down. So here's our first story point, the landing page. What is this data about? Where is it from? Here are 8 countries. So let's make a new blank point and drag out this second sheet.
Wait, how did you do that?
Just hit new blank point right here. Drag out this second one. And we're actually going to have to go back to the sheet over here and just size it a little bit. So if you just go back to the sheet, and then this is kind of controlling the actual size of the visualization. So if you just hit entire view, then when you put it in the story, it's going to fill up all the space.
So any changes that you make to
The
like,
worksheet
the
will
worksheet.
then ultimately affect the story.
Do we have to re-drag it on?
It shouldn't. It should just resize for you.
So what was the drop-down menu that you chose for that?
So that is just, so if I wanted it to be, you know, just affect the size of the visualization on here. It might be on the bottom left for you. But
So if it doesn't automatically update,
then you can just try re-dragging it on. Yeah. And you'll see that it's going to be the exact same sheet. So if you had highlighted things on the previous sheet, you can just go back and on a highlighter or re-highlight. That'll actually be our next story point. So this is, okay, so products. So approximately 25 different food items were analyzed. Okay, that's basic. But then if we wanted to do that same highlighting thing to point out outliers to kind of build to a point, you know, let's just click a couple more outliers. And then we can do this cool thing once we have, you know, certain ones selected that we want to direct the user towards. We can just do this save as new point option. And then it'll save exactly what we highlighted there. So I'll say, but not all prices in different countries were the same. So now we can see, if we take a step back for a second and put on the shoes of the reader, we can see how we're starting to focus. We're starting to direct their attention. So we start out with the zoom, data is collected from these 8 countries. Here they can look at, you know, and it's all interactive, so you can mouse over Indonesia and see how much oranges cost. You can just hit Kenya, just hit Pakistan. So here's an overview of the different prices throughout all the different countries. But don't look at all of them, just look at these outliers. Just look at the ones that I want you to focus on. So this is already, you know, starting to look pretty good. But back to your point earlier, what happens if I want to just, you know, make more stuff? And that's what often happens in your workflow, because we started out just messing around, right? Just playing around. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what we wanted. We knew we wanted a map. We built the map. So now we're at this point where we're actually working on our presentation, and we'll see that there's a lot more questions we have, a lot more insight we want to get. So let's just go back and keep building worksheets. It's just what you do all day, you know. So now let's look at, as you mentioned, how things change over time. So let's take observation date, drag it onto columns. And now basically we're going to build a timeline and see how these prices have changed over time. So just like with the numbers, it would default to aggregate based on sum. With dates, it'll default aggregate based on years. So if we hit that same drop down, we can manipulate how we want it to aggregate. So in this case, let's go with week number down here, just to give us enough data points but not too many. And then let's drag out price onto rows. Once again, we're going to have to change that from sum to average. And so now we got this view of across the entire world, this is how prices were changing over time. But let's drill down. So let's take country, drag it out onto color. So now you see it's going to zoom in, not the whole world, just like we did with the bar chart. Now we're looking at each country. So now this is just specific to each country. But what if we want to even go a step further? Now at this point in the presentation, we're not looking at things very zoomed out, we're focusing. So let's take product name, hit that drop down, and go show quick filter. And so what's going to happen now is this is going to give us an option to filter specific items. So instead of all, it's going to go away. Just hit apples. So that's just apples. Apples and eggs. You know, get rid of apples.
Time to buy apples.
Just eggs. Palm oil. So now what we're doing is we're putting even more power in the hands of the reader. So don't take what I'm interested in, take what you're interested in, and see how this data presents itself. So you can look at different items together or just specific ones. So this in itself is a pretty powerful worksheet because we're offering a chance to look at a high level, all products, or the ability to drill down to specific food items. So you can imagine, you know, all sorts of applications for this. So, okay, I'm gonna name this timeline.
Where are you naming it?
Just double click on the kind of tab down here. Let's just go back, name this bar chart. Timeline. And now I'm going to show you guys the final kind of presentation methods. We have our worksheet, which is the foundation for your visualizations. We have our story, which is a presentation environment. But the actual most powerful way to synthesize different pieces of information is here on a dashboard. So that's this middle button down here. And let's just change the size of this. And let's hit actually fit to story 1 down here on the bottom. And so just like in the story and in everything, this is just drag and drop functionality. So from a high level, what I'm trying to do here is synthesize our 3 charts that we've built. The map, the bar chart, and the timeline onto one dashboard where all the different sheets interact with each other. So that's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
When I hit fit to story 1, it doesn't look like it's
The same size? Well, your story 1 might be a different size.
Where's the fit to store?
So that's just down
Well,
here
if
where
you
you can.
renamed it, it wouldn't be story 1. It would be something.
Yeah, that. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm going to put this in the story, so you just want it to fit. But if you rename the story, this option should be all the way on the bottom here.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. All right. So with that goal, first step is just dragging out our stuff. So let's drag out that timeline we just built. And we're gonna have to be careful with formatting here because we're gonna try to have all these sheets on here at once. Drag the map out. Let's drag the bar chart out right over here. It's already starting to look a little messy. So in order to adjust the spacing, well, we can do some of this manually. I'm just gonna hide these titles. So if you right click, you can hide the title, just give yourself some more space. This is clearly a map. Bar chart's not the very descriptive title to begin with. And then if you can see, this bar chart isn't all fit in here, so if we hit that drop down and go to fit, if you do entire view, it'll kind of scrunch it in there. So maybe make this a little bit bigger. And then with this filter, what we can do is, if we also hit this drop down, it'll give us different filter options. So since this multiple value list, which is what it's currently at, takes up too much space, let's try multiple value drop down. Then we can actually just delete this country because we already have them colored here, this color legend. And then for a little more space, if we drag this filter while hitting shift, it'll make it floating, so that means you can kind of put it on top of other things. So just drag it, hold shift, and then just drop it, you know, somewhere on the map where it's not blocking anything. And so here we have a dashboard where we have our 3 different elements, but now the final step is we want to actually make it interactive. So it would be cool if when I click on India, everything updated to only show India. It's really easy to do that, fortunately. You can just hit the map, hit the drop down, and go to Use as Filter. So now this is basically going to read your mouse clicks on this sheet and update the other charts. So there's just Brazil.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so this is also, as you can imagine, probably pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And we can do actually the same thing with our product name filter. So if we hit that drop down and then this option apply to worksheets, currently it's set for only the timeline, but if we go all using this data source, because everything is connected to this one Excel file, it'll apply to all worksheets. So then just apples throughout the whole world, just apples in Brazil. Apples and eggs. Not just Brazil. Let's look at Nigeria. And if we wanted to get, you know, even fancier, if we use this one as a filter with our product names on here, we could just click orange there. Actually, that's not nearly as effective. Let's not do that. So here we have kind of all the analysis that we've done thus far distilled and presented in one place.
How do you get it to go back to every country?
So you would just okay.
No, well, not. Do you have to get rid of that filter?
You mean, so if you don't want just
right,
India?
So you clicked on that. So
Yeah.
now how do you get rid of it?
You just click India again. Yeah.
Okay.
You basically deselect. Yeah. So again, this is just the principle of walking, kind of hand-holding your reader through the data set. So now, if we go back to our story and we make a new point and drag this dashboard out here, so this is kind of the culmination of our research at this point. So, exploratory dashboard presenting country price analysis. If this doesn't fit, we can just make them a little bigger like that. And if we wanted to give them some more info, we could drag out another description. Say, click on a country to show just that country's data. Use the product filter to select different food types. And of course, you know, in this story, it's all the exact same interactivity we just showed. So now if we step back, you know, imagine someone who's new to this data set, someone who isn't familiar with crowdsourced grocery prices. So we've created an environment for them to, one, learn about the data set, and two, explore it and get some insight out of it. So if we walk through it from the beginning, all right, what's going on here? What is this data set? Data was collected from 8 countries around the world. Here are the 8 countries. It's a World Bank pilot study. Okay, cool. I'm still with you. What's this data set about? Where's the info coming from? Here it is, all these different food types, all the different countries still there, all color coded. Cool, got it. But not all prices in different countries were the same. Here are outliers. And these are the ones you should particularly pay attention to. But then the final step is not the traditional, here's my thesis, here is, you know, why I'm right and you're wrong. It's actually empowering. It says, okay, you've seen what I've done, you've seen my outliers, now you play around with it yourself. Click on different countries. There's Pakistan. Here's shrimp. Here's how it changes over time. So that's kind of the power of Tableau in that it is interactive. And it really passes the baton from you doing a top-down, this is, you know, my thesis and I'm done the research, so accept it or not. And it really offers this opportunity to be a more bottom-up experience. So, yeah.
Are you going to go over how you can embed it?
Yeah,
or?
that's exactly. So that would be the next step. But just to show you that, you know, there are a lot of formatting options. So let's change this to worldwide analysis of grocery prices. And, you know, let's say I work for the New York Times and we use Georgia. I want it to look really big and be in the middle. So, you know, we can do that.
What was that under?
So that was, if you just right click on the title and do format, you'll get kind of formatting options up here.
Where is there a title though?
You see it says story title. Here, I'll walk through that again. You can just double click story title.
Well, I don't even have this.
You do, scroll up.
Oh, I see.
There you go. Okay. And then, you know, if you wanted to make it really dramatic and do some cool shading, you can make that the background color. And I'm just doing all this in the format menu over here on the right. So the navigator, we really want to make it pop. You know, you can really just format up the wazoo. But the good thing for journalists and bloggers is there are enough formatting options so that you can match kind of the look and feel of whatever the destination site is. So let's say this perfectly matches my blog. All right, and I'm totally happy with the analysis. Let's say, oh, it seems like I've forgotten Kenya here on my outlier section. So now let me just pick some Kenya outliers real quick. And it'll allow me, it's hard to see up here because of my background, but it says update. So it'll allow me to just update that point. So you don't have to kind of go back and do it. If I want to do another one for Pakistan, you're kind of feeling skimped, update again, and then that'll update the point. So just double checking, feeling good about that. All right, so now we've done the work, we're ready to share it. So if we just go to File, Save to Tableau Public As, and this will just give me my little sign in that all you guys so nicely made beforehand. So Tableau Public, save to Tableau Public. Oh, okay, so you have to, basically a data extract means it's not live connected to your data, it basically just takes a snapshot. So before you save it to the web, it's gonna just prompt you to make a data extract. It's not a big deal, but you basically just have to do that. And so basically what's happening right now is it's taking this live app, dashboard I just created and pushing it up to Tableau Public's hosted server right here. So now, instead of this thing living in my application, it lives on the web. So it's the exact same thing.
Can you make changes once it's uploaded?
Excuse me?
Can you make changes once you've sent it to the website?
So you can't make changes directly on here, but what you do is you change the underlying thing and then just push it up again. So
Will the original one be there still?
it overwrites it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can kind of update it as many times as you want, and as long as you save it under the same. So if we look closely on here, this is the name of the workbook, this story 1. That's just because that's the name of this right here. So as long as you save this under story 1, it'll just overwrite. But so yeah, so now this is a live, interactive application living on the web. So let's say you want to embed this in an article. Couldn't be easier. Just here on the bottom where it says share, it'll give you an HTML embed code. And then you can just go right over and plop it in, as long as your blog or CMS uses HTML, then you just embed it directly in there.
So you can embed it, but could you put it like in a Word document?
No.
Okay.
Word document, no.
It wouldn't be interactive.
Yeah, it has to be actually coded, so HTML. Yeah.
Okay.
You could do it in a Word document if you wanted to just take an image of this.
Okay.
Then obviously you can do whatever, but in order to be interactive, it'll have to live on a website in an HTML code.
So you would have to do a screen grab of a photo to insert just the image, an image of the graphic.
Yeah.
And not be interactive. Okay.
Yeah. So that is actually what a lot of people will do with Tableau. They'll build something out like, a nice bar chart like this. Then they'll take an image of it, export it into Photoshop, mess around with it a little bit, and then save it as a flat image file. We obviously don't recommend that because we think the power lies in the interactivity, but that is a fairly common use case amongst Tableau public users.
Does Tableau require you to give credit? When you...
No, so what will happen if we embed this, so let me just see what I can do here for you guys. I'll just show you, this is our website, so if I was to write a blog post, it's a little behind the scenes look. Alright, so I actually made this post so I can just edit it for you. So let's say I wanted to drop this story just at the end of this blog post. So this is just an HTML post. Let's say we wanted to get this guy in there. So I'll just copy that embed code, paste it just directly in there. Just save this. Hopefully no one is reading this blog post and they get a weird thing. And then here's my live interactive story directly in the text. So it really is, we've worked really hard to kind of make that embed experience pretty seamless. And so it's really just copy and paste. It's pretty easy.
But say, hypothetically, I'm looking for a really old-ish website, and I would be putting up an image, a screenshot.
Okay.
Do you like courtesy Tableau, or does it?
Oh, no. So you will notice when I embed this, what comes along with it is this little watermark on the bottom. Okay. So that is the default. There are ways to delete that in the embed code if you want to. And the advantage there is you would also eliminate the ability of anyone. So what's cool about Tableau Public, again, if you think about the kind of founding principle, it's for public data. So what we've enabled, the default setting, is that anyone can come in and actually download this workbook. So then you guys can do this on your computer right now. You go to this website, download it, and then as long as you have Tableau Public, you can open the actual workbook. So that's in this kind of spirit of transparency and open data. So then anyone could come take this, see what I've done, actually see the underlying sheets, and do a couple things. You know, they could try to improve upon it. They could learn how it all fits together. So that's a really cool feature, and one that I kind of highly stress new Tableau people to take advantage of, because you can really just reverse engineer almost anything. So this is just on our website. This is probably my favorite example of a story point, which is what we just made. So this is John Schoen at CNBC. He made this about the Dow Jones 30. And we'll see that all these different colors represent different countries in the index for 2010 to the present, and you can really just see how in each decade kind of the market responded. So this is a really good example of kind of using story points and letting the user just click through. But so let's say we really like this. You can just download it. Then just like that, it's on your computer. You can open it up and just see exactly how we made it, get access to the underlying data. So that is definitely something to keep in mind as a built-in feature. Yeah.
So how they have their logo on there, they put that in like the description, or how did
Yeah,
they...
exactly. So this is actually just an image here. So if we go, you'll see that in each dashboard, this is just an image. Delete it, put it back in. So you can drop out, just like we dropped out that description. I mean, I maybe demoed 5 to 10% of the functionality, but yeah, you can download, put an image right in there. You can link to a web page. So there's all sorts of stuff you can do. But yeah, the image, put in the image of the logo is, again, very common with news sites. So yeah, I mean, I know that was quick and probably pretty confusing. But if I can say one thing, this is the type of tool that the barrier to entry is extremely low and the learning curve is extremely steep. So the only way to really do it is to just play around and do it on your own. Yeah.
So do people mainly use Tableau for kind of like a storytelling platform? Do you see many users just making one chart and leaving it at that? So
not often one chart, but often just one dashboard.
Okay.
So story points is actually a relatively new feature, but this, for example, this is just one dashboard. So this is by La Nación, a newspaper in Argentina. That's one of our biggest Tableau Public authors. So this is about different countries around the world and different levels of gay marriage acceptance. So you can just see, he's got the map up here where you can see on the color code what's going on. Then you can actually see the different countries here in a text box, and then a different bar chart. So this is similar to the dashboard we made in that it's synthesizing kind of 3 separate worksheets. So most visualizations end up just being a dashboard. The story points is still a relatively new feature, but it's a pretty powerful one for a more guided presentation.
Okay.
Any particular tips if you want to embed this in, embed it as a picture in Twitter and link to that live version?
So Twitter embed is pretty easy. We do it all the time. So basically what you'll end up doing is doing just a link. I mean, just like that. Or you could do an image linking to a viz. But yeah, so
what would the steps be if you wanted to put an image in your tweet?
Okay. Oh yes, good point. So the other share option here, other than embed code, is just a simple link. So this is just a URL link, you know, for someone to navigate to this page. So that's what you would tweet out that link, or email it out, or whatever, post it out. Because this is now a live, you know, website pretty much, or page. So this anyone can navigate to this as long as they have the URL, and it's given to you just right here or right there.
So the actual graphic wouldn't show up in the tweet, but you can just link back to the page with the actual graphic?
Yes.
Okay.
So on Facebook, what we do is you kind of have the image, and so this isn't interactive. Facebook can't support it, but it's an image that, you know, you click on, and then you'll see 50 years of crime.
So you can't use like Facebook's video embed. You can't embed it live into Facebook?
No. You would do an image to take you over to this site right here.
And again, if you wanted to do it, to tweet an image and obviously a link.
Yeah, that's easy to do. It's just as long as you can tweet an image, you can tweet an image into this.
If you tweet the link, does an image automatically generate?
No, it doesn't. It's just showing up.
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Is that kind of a frustration for you that Facebook hasn't made that kind of thing responsive yet, or do you care?
I mean, I haven't heard that feedback coming from many of our users, so I would say no, but I mean, it would be nice. But the real issue is this. So this space right here is what, you know, like 250 pixels wide. So in order for anything to look good on that, it would have to be 250 pixels wide. Whereas this dashboard is currently 1,000 pixels wide. So that's really the issue. It's more of a space on the screen issue, more than anything.
And all of like the code and stuff, the embed code, it's all optimized for mobile. It's all responsive to mobile.
Yes and no. So that's definitely something we're working on. And so I mentioned earlier Tableau 9.0, which is this current edition of the software, launched last week. So that was, it's definitely getting a lot better. It's not where we would want it to be yet, but that's something it's definitely the best experience is on a bigger screen, so a computer or an iPad. When you get down to your iPhone, you have to be a little smart about it. So that would mean creating a dashboard specifically optimized for your phone. So what a lot of people will do is, like John Schoen, that CNBC guy I mentioned, he basically created 2 versions of that CNBC viz. Or this guy could create 2 versions, one a desktop version and one a mobile version.
But like the code, he had to do that code on his own.
It's as simple as just changing this width. So you basically do one at 1,000 pixels and one at like 350. And then you would just resave this under a different title, mobile version. And there are actually a lot of other good resources, you know, if you're interested in learning more. Because again, that was very quick, very just kind of one example. It wasn't even, you know, really, this is everything it can do, this is what it can't do. But as you can see, we have all sorts of videos. Every Friday morning, we do a live training where we do a similar thing to what we just did here, for kind of 45 minutes. And then we offer sample data sets that, just like the one I sent over, so that you can kind of mess around. Yeah.
I think you might have answered this already, but what are the advantages or perks of having the version of it that, like, the businesses you have what's the advantages of having that type of
versus Tableau Public?
Right.
Okay, so Tableau Desktop, the paid version, you can connect to all sorts of different types of data, not just Excel or text files. This is if you're trying to do, connect to crazy big data, weird business database things. So that's what you can do with Tableau Desktop. You can also save things locally to your computer. That's the other big advantage. So you don't have to share over the web everything you create. Those are the two of them. But again, for data that's not private, then the thinking is you wouldn't have to hide anything on your computer with Tableau Public.
Do you still have a desktop agreement with IRE?
Yes. Yes, so if you're a member of IRE, you get 2-year free Tableau Desktop, which is incredible value. So,
What happens after 2 years?
I think you would just have to reapply.
Computer turns into a pumpkin.
Yeah. So that's definitely what you guys should do, because that's not even, you get the fancy version of the software, but you also get stuff like technical support, and like you're basically just a paying customer for free. So definitely do that.
Other questions, comments? Anybody have ideas about how to use this other than what we've talked about? Any epiphanies? Sock tips?
I think something like this could work really well for investigations, like long-form stories, because I think one of the frustrations that scientific integrity and publicly used to have is that a lot of investigations are like 4,000 words or 8,000 words, or 10 million words. You know what I mean? And the more unique ways you can visualize that and tell stories.
I also think you could, I feel like I would use this just for my own, to understand the data set without even putting out a thing. Like, I'm not like an Excel whiz, like we have an entire database team that can do that. But sometimes I'm working with the same data to report a story, and this is way more visual than me trying to figure out Excel.
Yeah.
So I feel like I would use it.
That's definitely a great use case, especially in that you get instant feedback, right? Yeah. So you can just drag and drop a couple things and then get some insight.
It makes it really easy to see those outliers, to see trends. Yeah, great thought.
Yeah. And I like your point also for kind of more longer things, because definitely, especially when you're just starting, it's going to be a bit of a time commitment to get to something that you feel comfortable presenting. So, if you want to just make a bar chart, you can do that too, but probably a better use of the time would be to have, a full story where the visualization is a component of that.
Now, is there like and this person may be you, but for database teams at different organizations, is there like a representative?
Yeah, that's pretty much me and my team. So what we end up doing a lot of the time, we don't like to advertise this too much, but if you want to write a story about, Ebola, for example, you'll come to us and say, hey, I'm thinking about this story, like here's what I want to do, yada, yada, yada. And then, if it's your first time, if you're a new user, we'll kind of go real hand in hand and essentially just build stuff for you. So that's a good option. My boss likes to say, we teach you how to fish, I'll give you a fish, but normally it ends up being me and my coworkers kind of over the phone over the course of a week or so, we'll iterate, and get something you're happy with the hope that next time, you can kind of do more of that yourself. But that definitely happens a lot and is a lot of our time. So definitely feel free to reach out. It's always fun working, with new journalists, and makes our team look good. So yeah, I'll put up my email in case you guys want to take that down.
It's also on your bio sheet.
Okay, if you got the bio sheet. But yeah, it's just ddavidson @tableau.com. So pretty simple.
All right, awesome. Thank
All right,
you so
yeah,
much.
thank you. Thanks.